When you outgrow someone you once prayed for, child, it is not rebellion. It is revelation. It is the soul's way of saying, I have learned the lesson this person came to teach me. There was a time you knelt and whispered their name to the heavens, asking for their presence, asking for the warmth of their hand, the steadiness of their love. And the universe in its infinite kindness said yes. It gave you what you thought you needed, not to make you smaller, but to awaken something vast within you. You see, prayers are not promises. They are lessons waiting to unfold. And sometimes the answer to your prayer is not in keeping the person, it is in outgrowing them. When you evolve, your spirit begins to speak a new language, one of truth, one of peace, one of purpose. The person who once matched your rhythm may now stumble to your beat. That does not make them wrong, nor you ungrateful. It simply means you have outgrown the season where their shadow fit beside yours. Growth is not cruel, my dear. It is courageous. It demands that you walk barefoot through the gardens you once ran through hand in hand. It asks you to bless the memory without clinging to it, to love what was without demanding it stay the same. When you outgrow someone you once prayed for, you are witnessing your own evolution. You are honoring the divine curriculum of becoming, the way hearts expand, the way minds awaken, the way souls rise toward their highest knowing. Outgrowing does not mean forgetting. It means you now understand that love, like light, cannot stay in one place too long. It must move, it must stretch, it must shine where it is most needed, even if that place is no longer beside. And so, with grace in your step and wisdom in your chest, you keep walking, not away from them, but toward the fuller version of yourself that you once prayed to become. Would you like me to make this speech about 24 minutes long, like your other video scripts when you outgrow someone you once prayed for? It is a quiet awakening of the spirit. It is not a loud goodbye nor a bitter departure. It is a soft realization, a tender unfolding that whispers, I have changed. There was a time when you were on your knees, hands clasped, heart trembling with hope, asking for this very person to find their way into your life. You prayed with sincerity, believing that if only this love, this friendship, this companionship could be yours, everything else would fall into place. And for a while it did. They came like sunlight through a window, filling you with warmth, comfort, and a sense of answered prayers. You believed they were the blessing you had long awaited, and in truth they were. But blessings, my dear, are not always meant to last forever. Some are meant to awaken parts of you that were sleeping, to guide you toward lessons you did not yet know you needed. When you prayed for them, you were a different person, with different wounds, different desires, and a different understanding of love. You prayed from the place you stood then, not from where you stand now. Growth has a way of changing the view. It stretches your soul, expands your wisdom, and sharpens your understanding of what truly nourishes you. What once fit you perfectly may now feel like a garment too tight for your spirit. You find yourself breathing differently, thinking differently, seeing the world with new eyes. It is not that the person changed necessarily. It is that you did. And when the heart grows, it cannot shrink back to its old size without pain. To outgrow someone you once prayed for is not an act of arrogance or betrayal. It is an act of grace. It means you have honored the purpose they served in your story. You have learned the lesson their presence carried. They may have taught you love, patience, forgiveness, or courage. They may have been the mirror that showed you your worth or the storm that revealed your strength. Either way, they were a teacher and you were a student. And when the lesson is complete, the soul gently moves to the next classroom. That is how growth works. It does not ask permission to evolve. There will be moments when you feel guilty for no longer fitting where you once felt safe. You may look back and wonder, how can I let go of someone I begged God for? But understand this, God never gave you that person to keep, gave them to you to learn. And when the learning is done, love transforms. It does not vanish, it changes shape. It becomes gratitude instead of grasping, memory instead of presence, peace instead of longing. So when you outgrow someone you once prayed for, do not curse the prayer. Thank it. It brought you to this moment, wiser, deeper, stronger. It taught you that every answered prayer is part of your becoming, and every goodbye is but a sign that you are growing closer to who you are destined to be. The grace of change is one of life's most misunderstood gifts. Many people mistake change for loss, when in truth, it is a sacred exchange. It is the moment when your spirit trades what once was comfortable for what is now necessary. To grow is to honor the divine rhythm of life, a rhythm that never stands still, never apologizes for evolving, and never waits for permission to become more. When you change, you are not abandoning your past. You are simply walking toward the future that was always waiting for you. And that, my dear, is grace. The quiet courage to transform without bitterness, to move forward without resentment. There is a certain elegance in allowing yourself to change. Deeper. The world often tells us to remain loyal to our beginnings, to the people, the dreams, and the identities we once held. But grace whispers differently. It tells you that loyalty to your growth is not disloyalty to your past. It is the highest form of gratitude. You do not dishonor what once was by outgrowing it. You honor it by becoming what it helped you to be. When the soul expands, it must release what no longer matches its frequency. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. The grace of change asks us to accept that life moves in seasons. Some seasons will warm you, others will stretch you. You cannot stay in summer forever, even if you love the way the sun felt on your face. There comes a time when autumn arrives, asking you to let the leaves fall. Not because they were worthless, but because they have completed their work. Growth requires shedding, and shedding, though often painful, is sacred. Every time you release something or someone you've outgrown, you make space for your next becoming. Many resist change because they fear the unknown. But grace teaches us that the unknown is not the enemy. It is the invitation. It is the soft voice saying, "I'll come see who you can be now." The grace of change teaches patience with yourself during the in-between, the space where what was has ended, but what will be has not yet begun. In that tender gap, you learn to trust that nothing beautiful is ever truly lost. It only transforms. The love you gave does not vanish. The moments you cherish do not fade. They become part of your foundation, building strength beneath your feet as you walk into the next chapter. To embrace change with grace is to bless both the arrival and the departure. It is to look at the people you once prayed for and say, "Thank you for walking with me this far." It is to be gently to what was and lift your eyes toward what is becoming. Change, when met with grace, is not a rupture. It is a rebirth. It is how the soul whispers, "I am still becoming," and that is a holy thing. The weight of outgrowing someone you once prayed for is not an easy thing to carry. It rests quietly at first, like a small ache beneath the heart, until one day you realize it has grown into something you can no longer ignore. It is a grief that wears no black, a loss without ceremony. You may still see their face, hear their laughter, remember the way they made you feel seen. And yet something within you has shifted. What used to fit so naturally now feels heavy, unfamiliar. You try to force the connection back into its old shape, but your soul refuses to shrink. The space between who you are and who they remain becomes too wide to bridge, and that realization comes with its own kind of sorrow. Outgrowing someone is not always a conscious decision. Often it happens quietly in the spaces where you're healing, learning, and becoming. The conversations that once nourished you begin to feel shallow. The habits that once felt comforting now seem confining. The laughter no longer echoes the same way it used to. And though there may be no argument, no dramatic ending, there is a growing silence, the kind that speaks volumes about how far you've come. This silence carries the weight of understanding that your paths once intertwined now lead in different directions. The heart struggles with such truth. It wants to hold on to what once was good, what once felt divinely answered. You tell yourself that maybe you can return to how things were. You replay the moments that made you fall in love, or the times when the friendship made the world less lonely. But time, that gentle teacher, reminds you that love cannot thrive where growth is denied. You can't unlearn what you've learned, and you can't unknow what your soul now sees. To continue pretending that nothing has changed would be to betray yourself, and that is a burden heavier than loss itself. The weight of outgrowing is not about blame. It is not about who was right or wrong, better or worse. It is about evolution. Some people are meant to walk beside you only until a certain part of your journey is complete. When their purpose has been fulfilled, their presence begins to feel like a closed door you keep knocking on, hoping it will open again. But wisdom whispers that it is time to turn toward the open ones ahead. And yet, even in that knowing, there is tenderness. Because to outgrow someone is to acknowledge that they mattered deeply. They were once the answer to your prayer, the reflection of your hopes, Letting go of them does not erase that truth. It simply means you now carry them differently. Not in your hands, but in your heart, where their lesson remains. That is the true weight of outgrowing. Not the loss of love, but the realization that love has changed its form, and so must you. The mirror of self-awareness is not always kind when you first learn to look into it. It reflects not only your beauty, but your becoming. The raw edges, the truths you tried to bury, the lessons you thought you could postpone. When you outgrow someone you once prayed for, that mirror stands before you like a teacher, asking, "Who are you now?" It does not flatter or comfort, it reveals. It shows you that the version of yourself who once begged for that relationship, that friendship, that companionship, was doing the best they could with the understanding they had. But now, as your awareness expands, you begin to see not only what you wanted, but why you wanted it. And sometimes that truth can sting. Self-awareness is the moment you realize that your prayers were never about the person, but about the feeling you hoped they would bring. Safety, belonging, validation, or love. You believe that by having them near, your emptiness would quiet, your insecurities would settle. And for a time it worked. They became a reflection of your desires, a mirror for your hopes. But as you grew, you discovered that no one can be the source of your wholeness. They can only remind you of what already lives within you. That is when the mirror shifts. You stop asking, "Why did they change?" and begin asking, "What have I learned about myself through this?" The mirror of self-awareness's demand? It requires honesty, not the kind you offer others, but the kind that whispers to your own soul when the room is silent. It asks you to admit the parts of yourself that settled for less than you deserved, that clung to comfort instead of growth, that mistook attachment for love. This kind of reflection is not cruel. It is cleansing. It strips away illusion so that you can see your own light clearly again. Sometimes self-awareness reveals that you stayed too long because you feared being alone. Other times it shows that you held on out of habit, not harmony. It teaches you that love cannot heal what you refuse to confront within yourself. And when that understanding dawns, you begin to forgive. Not just them, but you. You forgive yourself for confusing endurance with devotion, silence with peace, and longing with love. This mirror teaches you compassion. You begin to see that the person you once prayed for was not wrong for you. They were right for the version of you that existed then. They helped you discover your boundaries, your needs, your truth. They helped you grow into the person who now stands tall enough to see what once blinded you. Self-awareness gives you permission to honor both your past and your progress. When you truly see yourself, you no longer chase what once filled your emptiness. You nurture what fills your wholeness. That is the power of the mirror. It doesn't just show who you were. It reminds you of who you are becoming. The courage to release is one of the hardest forms of bravery a human heart can practice. It does not come with applause or recognition. It happens in quiet moments, when you finally stop fighting to make something fit, when you accept that love is not enough to keep two paths aligned, when you choose peace over familiarity. Releasing someone you once prayed for takes more strength than holding on ever did. Because holding on feels like action, like effort, like doing something. But letting go, that feels like surrender. It feels like standing in an open field with nothing to grip, trusting that the wind will not destroy you, but carry you where you need to go. We are taught to believe that letting go is failure, that endings are proof we did something wrong. But the truth is, release is a sacred act of wisdom. It is the moment you stop forcing what was never meant to stay. It is the understanding that love in its truest form must also know when to bow gracefully. Courage begins where attachment ends. It is not the absence of love. It is the evolution of. You release not because you no longer care, but because you finally do. Enough to wish them peace, even if it's not beside you. The courage to release is not a single decision. It is a process, a daily act of faith. One day you may feel strong, certain, ready to move on. The next you may ache for the comfort of what was familiar. You may miss their voice, their presence, their understanding of you. But with every passing day, your soul whispers a little louder. It is time, and you begin to listen. You begin to understand that courage is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to walk through it without turning back. Sometimes courage looks like silence, not responding, not explaining, not begging to be understood. It looks like blessing what once was and walking away without resentment. It means allowing memories to exist without needing to rewrite them. It means forgiving without reconciliation and loving without possession. When you release with courage, you do not close your heart, you expand it. You learn that endings can coexist with gratitude. You discover that you can love someone deeply and still choose yourself fully. The act of release is sacred because it is honest. It requires you to face the truth that something beautiful has run its course. And though your heart may tremble, you still let go. Not because you stopped believing in love, but because you now believe in growth. You have learned that to hold on past the season of purpose is to carry a weight that keeps you from rising. The courage to release teaches you that peace is not found in what you keep, but in what you are brave enough to set free. The lesson of love seasons is one that every soul must learn if it wishes to grow in wisdom. Love, like the earth itself, moves in cycles, blooming, thriving, fading, and renewing. Yet we often forget this truth. We want love to stay in perpetual spring filled with sweetness, warmth, and wonder. But love, real love, does not stay still. It transforms, it teaches, it comes to show us something about ourselves, about giving, about patience, about surrender. When you outgrow someone you once prayed for, it is not because love has failed. It is because the season of that love has fulfilled its purpose. In the beginning, love feels like summer. It glows, it sings, it fills every empty space with light. You feel alive in its warmth. You believe it will never fade. But as time passes, subtle changes begin. The leaves of certainty begin to turn. The air of connection starts to cool. What once felt effortless now takes awareness, care, and growth. This is the arrival of autumn, the season where love invites you to reflect. It asks you to see what has changed, not with fear, but with honesty. It asks you to gather the lessons before winter comes. Winter is the quiet season of love, the stillness after the rush. It is when the noise subsides and you are left with truth. It may look like loss, like absence, like something has ended. But winter is not death, it is transformation. It is when love teaches you endurance, solitude, and acceptance. It asks you to rest, to release, to trust that spring will return in new form. Maybe not with the same person, but with a deeper understanding of what love really means. Love seasons are not punishments, they are teachers. Each one shapes you. The spring of love shows you possibility. The summer of love shows you joy. The autumn of love shows you change. The winter of love shows you wisdom. And in every ending, there is a seed waiting to be born again. The pain you feel when a relationship ends is simply the soil being turned over so that new growth can begin. When you outgrow someone, you are not rejecting love. You are respecting its rhythm. You are acknowledging that every connection has a divine timing. Some loves are meant to last a lifetime, others only a chapter, and both are sacred. The lesson is not in how long love stays, but in how fully you allow it to teach you while it's there. Love seasons remind you that nothing in this world is meant to remain unchanged. To love deeply is to accept impermanence. To let go is to honor the cycle. When you learn to move with the seasons of love instead of resisting them, you no longer fear endings. You trust beginnings. And that is the quiet, enduring wisdom that love leaves behind. Education of the soul is not taught in classrooms or found in books. It is learned through living, through loving, through losing, through rising again and again. Every experience, every person, every heartbreak, every triumph becomes a teacher. When you outgrow someone you once prayed for, you are not failing at love. You are graduating to a new level of understanding. The soul's education is not about holding on. It is about evolving. It is learning when to embrace, when to release, and when to stand still and listen. It is the constant unfolding of wisdom that cannot be rushed, only received. The soul learns through contrast. It learns light through darkness, peace through chaos, strength through struggle, and truth through illusion. The people who enter your life are part of this divine curriculum. Some come to awaken you, others to challenge you, some to heal you, and a few to remind you of who you are. Even those who hurt you become sacred teachers if you are willing to look beyond the pain and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Every encounter, no matter how brief or long, is an assignment from life, a lesson crafted for your growth. Outgrowing someone you once prayed for is one of the soul's hardest lessons. It teaches you that love is not always meant to be permanent. Sometimes it is meant to be transformative. You realize that people can be both blessings and lessons at once. That someone can be perfect for the person you were, yet misaligned with the person you are becoming. The soul learns that attachment is not the same as connection, and that freedom is sometimes the highest form of love you can offer. This education demands humility. It asks you to admit that you do not know everything, that life's wisdom often comes dressed in discomfort. You may resist at first, clinging to what feels familiar, but the soul is patient. It waits for you to catch up to its knowing. And when you finally do, you see that every ending was actually an opening, every heartbreak a redirection, every silence a lesson in listening. The soul is never bitter about what is lost. It is grateful for what was learned. The education of the soul is ongoing. There are no final exams, no certificates, no completion dates. You will keep learning as long as you breathe. You will keep being shaped by love, by pain, by joy, by truth. Some lessons will be gentle, others will demand your courage, but all of them will bring you closer to yourself. And so when you look back at the people you once prayed for, you do not see mistakes. You see chapters in the great book of your becoming. You see how each encounter refined your heart, softened your pride, deepened your compassion. That is the true education of the soul. Learning that everything, even lost, was working together to teach you how to love more wisely, more freely, and more deeply than before. And so, my dear, when you look at your journey, every prayer whispered, every love gained and released, understand that none of it was wasted. You were never foolish for praying, never weak for holding on, never wrong for letting go. You were learning, you were growing. You were answering the call of your own becoming. The people you once prayed for, the moments you once cherished, were stepping stones guiding you toward the wholeness you now carry within. Stand tall in that truth. Smile with gratitude at what was and walk forward with grace into what will be. For outgrowing is not the end of love. It is love's evolution. It is the soul finally saying, I am ready for the next chapter. And when you can bless both the beginning and the goodbye, you have truly learned what it means to be free.